Hi, this is Anthony Parent of Parent and Parent LLP, and I have with me a very special guest coming all the way from Poland, Ryan Socash, who is, by the way, a bit of a YouTube star. Ryan, thank you so much for flying over and coming and being a guest here today.
Despite the horrific circumstances I found myself in to become a guest on your show, it is an absolute pleasure and honor to be here in the IRS Medic studio, a place that I watched through many turbulent moments, and I found a little bit of unexpected passion for international tax law thanks to this place. So,
Well,
thank you.
So you have a little bit of a tax issue.
As far as I understand it, I could have had
There you go.
a tax
That's
issue had I not reacted promptly to the warnings that were appearing in the horizon. But the bigger issue that I had was the ludicrousy and just the vile disgust that I felt at the revelations which came, through the discovery of how American tax law works. It's just like, it is beyond what I think any human being's imagination is capable of.
So you are an expat, and you have a business overseas.
Yeah.
You live in Poland.
Correct.
Seems like you speak. Your Polish is pretty good. You're
Thank
married to a Polish. You're married to a Polish woman,
A lovely one.
and you have Polish kids.
2 lovely children, yeah.
And you have this fantastic presence, a media presence that's growing every day. And you had Lech Walesa on as a guest on your show.
That's right.
Absolutely fantastic. So my question for you is this: what was that thing? What was that one thing that alerted you to say, "Wait a second, why do I have to file U.S. income taxes?"
Okay. Well, maybe I'll give you a little context. I have a tendency to run my mouth in these kind of programs, and it's confessional, so I like the opportunity. But if we go back to my early days, I was a lost artist type. I had a liberal arts education at Columbia College in Chicago, photography. There was no mention of any tax anywhere along the road. And then when I was 23, I disappeared to Europe, and I left everything behind, including, to a large degree, my identity, as a United States citizen. I wasn't exactly anti-American, but my life in America was never really the best thing, and I just wanted to find a new, wonderful space. And through the years, living in a foreign country, you have to really assert and prove yourself. Like, to really mean something in a foreign society, you have to give every cell in your body to the existence there, and you have to really, really love it. That was important to me. So through the years, I began to identify myself as a citizen of Poland. And I really take that seriously. I mean, when it comes to my career on YouTube, much of what I've done in the media was devoted to representing Poland to Polish people through foreign eyes, just to kind of share my love and passion for the culture there and get Polish people re-excited about their own country, which these days they don't really need. I mean, everyone seems to be excited about Poland in one way or another. And through all these great things that happened, I started a company that became very popular in Poland called Mediacraft. Anyone under the age of 24 has seen one of my productions, whether they realize it or not. I'm not appearing on camera in every production. And I started a family, and the family became like my motivation, as any man's motivation would be, to earn and to provide. I find myself in a lot of crazy shenanigans. I mean, I was once in a building in Russia that was wired to be demolished by explosives. I was in Chernobyl, Ukraine. I was in Qatar with some, I don't even need to elaborate on that, but I think you get the idea. I have kind of an adventurous situation in my life, a good time in my life. And my wife is very understanding, and she gives me a long leash. But she said, "Listen, sweetheart, you got to get life insurance."
Okay.
And I said, "You know what? You're right."
Yeah.
Because it's not that I take unusual risks or anything, but, people who put themselves out there expose themselves to dangers. And So that's the natural thing any person would do who wants to provide for, 3 lovely girls. So she took out this plan. I was like, whatever you want, because, ultimately it's for you anyways. If I die, that's going to be your thing. So you just need to get what's going to be good for you. She also got a life insurance plan for herself. And then she's like, well, they have this option that actually you can do like a little bit like of an investment attachment to it. So actually in like 30 years from now, if you're still alive, then you can cash in on this and buy a house. And I thought, well, that's certainly better than just paying money into thin air. And we opted for that option. I pay into this thing for like 3 months. Forget about it, basically. Until one day, actually, it was funny because we lost the key to our post box. So we couldn't get in there for like an eternity. Finally, my wife figured out how to like slip her fingers down in there and pull out the
security
junk mail.
System. All right.
Yeah. And it was like, we had a different legal issue and we were like really need to check the mail. And there was some letter from the life insurance provider. And I almost just threw it directly into the garbage because it wasn't registered mail. It wasn't certified mail. It was nothing extraordinary looking. But I took it to work with me and I opened it. And, I'm reading this thing in Polish. And my Polish, as you mentioned, is pretty decent, but it's still, it needs to be verified kind of. But what I was gathering is that this thing said, we've identified you as an American tax person, not American tax citizen or a U.S. citizen or anything like that, but American tax person was how it was phrased in Polish. And they said, according to a treaty, we're going to report you to the Polish tax authorities, and they're going to rat you out. Okay, well, that's my version of it, but they're going to rat you out to the American ones. And my heart started beating like, whoa, what did I do wrong here? This has to be a mistake. I'm a Polish citizen. I've been living here since I was basically a kid. I speak the language. I pay so much tax. It's just unbelievable. Not only on myself, but for my company, for my workers. And I actually pride myself on that, which is what makes it so frustrating. And so when I travel internationally, I use a Polish passport. I really identify myself as Polish. By Polish law, I should be regarded only as a Polish citizen. So to receive this in the country that I consider home, with a citizenship that I believe that I've really sacrificed a lot of my being to earn, I'm going to be ratted out to the American tax authorities. It was upsetting to me on so many levels. But then when I started to read about FATCA, and that was just a whole different level of sanity, and I'm able to, I've psychologically confronted a lot in my life, in my childhood, in building my very unusual career, but this thing, I was in a legitimate depression. I mean, I really didn't feel like I could see a way. It's not like I was suicidal or something, but I really believed that it was all over for me. I thought, because when I started to add up all the potential fees for the violations and then the potential of jail time, and then like you could come forward and they might just crucify you for it. I mean, really the way it seemed to me was like, it would just seem hopeless. So I called some accounting firm in Delaware, and they wanted like $30,000 just to say hello, and they didn't know anything. I was telling them more about the law than they actually knew. They knew about the fines. They figured that out, and they were terrifying me with it, which added to my general anxiety. So I told my wife, I'm like, they could put me in an electric chair. This is wrong. This law is crazy. I would rather go to an electric chair than pay $30,000 just to start working on forms to correct it. And, my wife, obviously, she's way more rational than I am. So she calmed me down. She's like, no, you have kids. You have to deal with this. The funny thing is that my mother, when I called her, she had the same reaction. She was like, don't come forward to them. They're, you're going to come forward in good faith and they're just going to destroy you. when your mother says something like that. And she's normally right about those things. It's like when I was a kid, I got arrested for skating on the porch of a funeral home. Ridiculous thing to do. I was young. But the point is, the officer came up to me and was like, "Excuse me, boys, were you skating on the porch of that funeral home?" And I believe that, being transparent and being honest and open to the police was the best policy. Got me arrested. I could have just been like, no, and that should have been the end of it, but, and I know so many stories. So, the real predicament for me was like, if these laws are so atrocious, that you can't live with yourself respecting them, and if you have to sacrifice $30,000, which in Poland is like a really ridiculous amount of money.
Well, I think $30,000 was just a start.
That's just a start.
That's just a start.
And I could have been destroyed by fees. So I was thinking, wow, this thing could mess up my career and everything. What do you even do under that scenario? It was real devastation. And my wife and I have this thing. We always say, well, what is this issue going to mean on our deathbed? And that was one of those things that might actually mean something. If you don't come to compliance and then you're held accountable. And the crazy thing was, the thing that made it so hard is that, like, we have joint bank accounts, and I know that they can force the bank to freeze those accounts if you're not in compliance. So I felt really threatened in a doomful way. If that's even a word.
For a few of the things that you're bringing up, though, I mean, this is one of the commentary that we have. A lot of I belong to a lot of us are trying to repeal some of these laws because you're living overseas, you're paying taxes overseas, you're tax compliant, and it's so odd that you're getting not only that you have this compliance burden. The fact is you actually will owe no tax. I'm pretty confident of that. Once we apply your foreign tax credit, there's going to be a bunch of hoops and hurdles to jump through just for zero tax.
Yeah.
But your penalty exposure is huge. And the thing that the groups that we're working with, Keith Redmond, he's been helping out, spearheading a lot of things. Solomon Yu, Republicans Overseas, Grover Norquist, Nigel Green. We have a bunch of great people trying to change the law. And also at the Isaac Brock Society, our friends in Canada, we comment on how many of the U.S. tax practitioners scare the living crap out of people to just get them to do things that they normally wouldn't do. They will throw you a worst case scenario. And I will really say this, Ryan, if you did nothing, you being in Poland, the chances of you being arrested are kind of zero. But I know, but your feeling is different,
But
how
you're still in violation. And when you know about it, it's even
right.
worse. Yeah, I'm law abiding.
Right, and that's going to get me to my next question because there's another one. Oh. But you're the thing I would recommend for people, if you are dealing, if you're dealing with someone who is giving you the gloom and doom, because we take over cases all the time, and we find these doom and gloom people don't know the first things about how to actually solve problems. We have seen, it's bad enough you have the IRS against you, the entire tax profession, not the entire, a lot of the tax industry is also on the IRS's side. Yeah. And so you're going to this person to say, okay, they're going to have my best interest at heart. And they totally send you over to the IRS because the last thing they want to do is stick their neck out. What they want you to do is just you pay more money and, you also pay me money. I want you pay me money so you could pay someone else money. And it's just sort of nasty. But here's my question for you, because I've talked to thousands of people, and my staff has talked to thousands of people around the world, and we've talked to thousands of people not in compliance. And the fact is there's millions of expats not in compliance. So why are you being in compliance? Because I've talked to people with big problems, and they said, yeah, I'm just not going to do anything. So why is not doing anything? You can't fathom that. What's driving that?
Well, first of all, let me just kind of address one thing. The reason I came to you as a client is because when I decided I had to do something about it, I thought I was going to be my own lawyer. So I just started to learn as much as I could about tax law. And your videos were really the most helpful and insightful pieces of education I could find around the net. It really, really helped build a bond. I think I've always been a self-righteous person. No matter how you want to look at it, if it comes to a little thing like I do not drink alcohol out of principle, out of pure principle.
I don't drink because of vanity. It adds too much weight. That's
Yeah, I mean, it's I could tell you it's about the health stuff,
yeah.
but it's a lie. I just believe that it's wrong and it's evil. Forgive me. I know it's a popular thing, and it's not a popular stance to say.
No, it's not. No.
But I have always publicly been open about that, and I get a lot of criticism for it. And I could go down a list of a million things. I am the person who would probably get shot before I would give you my wallet if you were robbing me. And so if we live in a democratic society where laws are, in theory, created by the people for the people, and this citizenship of mine, it's attached to me since birth. It's not something I asked for. It is actually a part of who I am. And one of the things I considered as a way out, and I think it's kind of a coward's way out, hopefully I don't do it ever after making that statement, was renouncing my citizenship. And the reason I feel that way is if I get rid of my citizenship, I will never really be regarded as Polish, no matter how bad I want that. People will always see me as an American. If I don't identify this identity of mine, then I'm essentially fake. And there's no righteousness in a person who's not real. So, I mean, to run away from my citizenship, if that's one of the only real attributions of the identity I project to the world, whether I like it or not, by the way, this could not prevail me. And the other thing is living with a loaded gun pointed to your head is absolutely not an option for me. I won't even take a mortgage. If I don't have cash for something, I'm not buying it. That's okay. If I'm starving and I have to borrow money for food, that would be a really different case. But if I can't afford to buy something with cash, I'm not buying it. It's simple. And I think it's a similar philosophy. I have big ambitions and plans for my life, and I would not like them to be trampled because I was too weak to stand up and take accountability for being in violation of laws, even if I think that those laws are bullshit.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And, we know of a lot of people that we know have had to give up their citizenship, not really because of choice, that they couldn't live in the country they were in because their bank accounts were shut down. And so we know some people, and, people have been lost sleep, have thrown up, live in anxiety and shame. And and I understand those people's decisions, and I respect everybody's decisions of whatever somebody has to do. Everyone has to live in their own integrity. But as we're looking at this, do you see there, Congress? Do you see something? Why do you think this is a good idea to drive people to these extremes, where people have to look at this thing, giving up your U.S. citizenship is a very serious thing, and people who take it seriously.
Of course.
And it's just sort of a nightmare that we're all hoping changes, and we're working towards that. Right now, there is the tax reform was passed last year. We didn't get the repeal of FATCA that we were hoping for. We didn't get the territorial taxation that we were hoping for. However, there is a really good push right now to fix some of the things that didn't get into there. And I want to just encourage everybody, Ryan, and encourage everybody. It's like, you know what, because my position is, you know what, the law does suck. It does absolutely suck. But giving up the opportunities of America is a huge cost. And you really don't know the future of when you would still want your United States citizenship.
Sure. So
if it was me, I would do the same thing that you're doing. I would say, okay, this stinks. I'm going to go through with it, but I'm also not going to be done when I have my disclosure. I'm going to continue to try to change the laws, because these laws are completely unfair and they're creating nightmares for entrepreneurs like you all around the world. I mean, if we're born U.S. persons, is not the world our oyster, Ryan? Is it or isn't it?
You know, these days it's a really hard question to answer. But in my experience, being American abroad has been a very positive thing. And, you know, even in a time when the United States has become an easy target for ridicule, you know, politically or with our issues with obesity or whatever it might be, it's still regarded as the top country. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I don't often say things like that, actually, but in a weird way. One of the lessons that I learned through this experience is that the United States is an absolute superpower still. You know, if they could,
the only
I
superpower.
disappeared under a rock and I'm basically insignificant in terms of what's going on here, but they clawed me right out with their laws. You know, that's in a sick way, that's pretty amazing if you think about it. And I'll tell you this much though, if things weren't to work out for me in that regard, which, you know, you've assured me that they will, and I think that they will, because what's important, as long as we're on the record, is that I was never willingly in violation of any of this. You know, the moment, like within 30 days of knowing it, I already had a lawyer retained and, you know, was working on my case. But I would absolutely martyr myself as a PR. I don't even know what the right word is. As a PR martyr against this law, you know, and some of the things I've done have been pretty against the odds. Yeah, I've created a company that in a single month reaches 100 million views in a country, in a language territory of 38 million people. So if you tell me that there are 9 million people like me living abroad, you know, the first thing is, how do I collect those 9 million people together? And then how do I unify them to vote bullshit like this? Or just generally to vote, right? I mean, if that's how you want to play, if that's how you want to provoke, there are outspoken people who live abroad, you know, and I think when we are provoked, we could come back in ways that might actually be genuinely not satisfactory to the ways. I never interfered. I haven't voted for any American elections on the sole purpose that I don't live in this country. Like, I always thought, if I don't live there, it's not my business to vote because I'm not going to be living under the umbrella. That has changed. Now I will vote.
That's right. And I think, you know what, that's a very important point. And you have your Cult America channel. If you are wondering how to vote, we had a guest on a couple of weeks ago, Kathleen Mystery of AARO.org. Go there and you can find on their homepage at aaro.org, you'll find the instructions on how you can get your voice overheard. And lots of groups out there. And if you're on Facebook, check out Citizenship Taxation. Okay, there's a group there. Keith Redmond's group, American Expatriates. Lots of discussion going on there. On Twitter, these guys are all over the place. You're going to like them. Americans for Tax Reform. You're going to see there, and all the way. A lot of lawmakers are on Twitter, and they do respond. So you'll find them on Twitter. So the House Ways and Means Committee, they're the ones who drive whatever the bill is going to be. So you're going to want to get out there and really push this unified message. And that's why I think it's critical. Every U.S. expat, okay, even you got to get involved here. You got to vote. 9 million people is enough to swing any election.
Is that true?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Get that done. And yeah, absolutely.
I'm thinking, I've made 2 YouTube channels now that have over 1 million subscribers.
Yeah.
I've made over 14 YouTube channels that have over 100,000 subscribers. So I'm really, I really have the temptation to get involved in this thing. Because
really?
Collecting 9 million people and unifying them in the bond of being a victim to a horrific law. We can't even have normal bank accounts. We have to submit. You don't have to submit that living here in America, that kind of information.
No.
That's like, isn't that kind of almost unconstitutional? It's
like
it totally is.
It totally is. Of course it is. Yes.
You know, and by the way, law is not my thing. I'm an artist guy. So the amount of time I've devoted just to learning about how Americans are policed abroad. We'll see how things develop and go. But if you tell me there are 9 million of us, I think we can find a way to unite that, and we can use that in voting. And I suppose a lot of those people, they also don't bother to vote.
That's
because
right.
they're not living in the States.
Right.
But when you start messing with a fundamental like people's food or people's money, they might start voting.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, that's what I was hoping you would say. I think, hey, Congress, you're going to have Ryan Socash on your hands, and I think we're going to. I'm just really happy to have you on the team to get some real meaningful reform passed. So that people overseas can live the life that they want to live and have freedom that I think is our birthright. That
Absolutely.
is the absolute thing.
Well, that's all anyone ever talked about, anyways.
Right? Isn't it?
When I did live here,
right?
So it is kind of funny. You go away, I guess the freedom, that part, the tax laws apply to you, but the freedom part doesn't apply anymore.
That's right. Well, Ryan, I want to thank you so much for coming in from Poland, and we did do a video. So you want to check out Cult America. Where do I point here? The video.
Yeah,
we'll
get a card.
We'll get a card
up.
in the video up.
But
to Ryan's channel of Ryan coming in, and that was a lot of fun. We had a tremendous amount of fun with it, and I'm just really thankful you came.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I hope to be a reoccurring guest, and let's see what we can do about getting it. 9 million people is actually not that many people.
That's right.
And if only they knew the gun they had pointed at them, the metaphorical gun.
Yes, the metaphorical gun.
Then,
well, a metaphorical gun
that
could lead to a actual gun, kind of. In some cases, in some cases, not. And I don't mean to.
That is the best IRS medic episode ever. Subscribe to the channel, Anthony Parent, my favorite podcast host and lawyer.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for watching.